Lucas Vance wiped the sweat from his brow as the fluorescent lights of the orbital medical bay flickered overhead. The station's hum was his constant companion, a dull white noise that usually calmed him. Tonight, though, it felt wrong. Something prickled at the back of his neck, the kind of feeling that screamed trouble was coming before he even saw it. A sudden crash shattered the quiet. The outer bay window cracked as if struck by a hammer, sending shards spinning into the vacuum outside. Alarms blared, red lights strobed, and Lucas instinctively ducked, his heart hammering. Through the shattered viewport, he glimpsed a shape massive and alien, glinting in the station's floodlights. Scales, enormous wings folded against a powerful body, and eyes that shone with a strange green fire. It was no human. No terrestrial animal. His mind stumbled, a dragon. A real dragon. But what really caught him off guard wasn't the mother. It was the small, writhing figure she cradled in her claws. A hatchling barely larger than a Terran dog, covered in barnacle-like growths that pulsed as if alive. It let out a soft, wet whimper, a sound that cut through the alarms and shook something deep in Lucas. The dragon mother's eyes fixed on him, and for a moment, time stopped. She seemed to study him, measuring his intentions. Then a low, resonant hiss filled the bay, vibrating through his bones. It was both a warning and a plea. Lucas knew he had seconds to act or risk losing them both. He sprinted toward the containment units, ignoring the warnings flashing across the control panel. The hatchling was small and fragile, yet the barnacles made its skin gleam with a sickly, almost metallic sheen. Lucas grabbed the nearest diagnostic scanner and aimed it at the hatchling, watching the readouts flash wildly. Vital signs were unstable, erratic. He tapped the monitor, rerouted power, and muttered a curse under his breath. The mother let out a sudden roar, shaking the station's walls. Tools and debris tumbled from racks. Lucas dove behind a console, narrowly avoiding a falling medkit. His pulse raced, but he forced himself to focus. Panic would kill them faster than any alien threat. "You're going to be okay," he whispered, more to himself than the hatchling. His fingers moved deftly over the controls, setting up a temporary life support field. The hatchling squirmed, its barnacles twitching violently. Lucas frowned. This wasn't normal. Something alive was embedded in its skin, reacting to him, almost like it could sense his every move. The dragon mother shifted, her wings stretching against the walls. A gust of displaced air pushed Lucas back a step. She nudged the hatchling closer to him, eyes flicking to the monitors, as if asking him to do what she could not. Lucas swallowed hard and reached out with gloved hands. The moment his fingers brushed the hatchling's scales, a pulse of warmth shot up his arm. The barnacles retracted slightly, almost as if recognizing the touch. A small, victorious smile crept across Lucas' face. He had stabilized it, at least temporarily. He met the dragon mother's gaze again, and she lowered her massive head in a silent nod. Connection established. Small win. But the sense of relief barely had time to settle before a new alarm screamed through the bay. Lucas froze. The barnacles began to twitch violently, more coordinated now, their movements almost intelligent. They shimmered with a strange bioluminescence that pulsed in rhythm with the hatchling's heartbeat. The alien parasite, or whatever it was, seemed aware of him. Every instinct screamed danger, yet Lucas couldn't pull away. He had to see this through. The dragon mother hissed, wings flaring, claws scraping the metal floor. She was protective but anxious, and that anxiety was contagious. Lucas realized something horrifying. If the barnacles were reacting to him, they might react to anyone. Even the mother herself. She wasn't just bringing a sick hatchling, she was delivering a ticking biological problem into his hands. Then the hatchling let out a sudden shriek, a sharp, high-pitched sound that made Lucas flinch. The barnacles pulsed brighter, and a shockwave of sound rattled the bay, sending tools skittering across the floor. Lucas barely held onto the hatchling. The mother roared again, louder this time, shaking the bay so violently the outer window groaned. He had no choice. The only way to keep them alive, and prevent the barnacles from spreading, was to act immediately. He secured the hatchling in an emergency containment pod, manually powering life support. Sparks flew as systems overloaded, and he ducked as a conduit shorted out above him. The mother's eyes followed him the entire time. There was intelligence there, grief and fear. She understood him now, and in turn, he understood her. This was no ordinary creature. She had traveled light years to reach him. She trusted him. Lucas exhaled, muscles trembling as the pod hummed steadily, its lights blinking in promise of survival. A small victory, a moment of hope. But even as relief crept in, the hatchling's barnacles twitched violently again, and a thin, almost invisible mist began rising from them. Lucas froze. The mist glowed faint green, drifting toward the station's life support vents. He realized with a sinking heart, this was bigger than a single hatchling. Bigger than the station. Something in the barnacles was alive, smart, dangerous, and far from fully understood. The dragon mother stepped closer, her massive head lowering until it was nearly level with his. She hissed softly, almost pleading, and Lucas' eyes locked on the mist spreading across the floor. Whatever he did next would determine not just the hatchling's life, but possibly the fate of the entire station. And then from deep within the mist, a faint, eerie hum began to rise, an intelligent signal or a warning. Lucas' pulse spiked. Something, or someone, was coming. Lucas stared at the green mist curling across the floor, his pulse hammering. The containment pod hummed steadily, keeping the hatchling alive, but the barnacle spores weren't finished. They shimmered, almost sentient, spreading faster than he could track. Each pulse of light made his stomach tighten. The dragon mother shifted behind him, wings brushing the walls, making the station creak. She hissed, low and trembling, a warning that made every nerve in Lucas' body tense. He realized then, she wasn't just protective, she was terrified. Whatever had infected her hatchling was clever, and it was spreading. He crouched low, tracing the mist's movement. His mind raced, thinking faster than ever before. Standard containment protocols wouldn't work. The barnacles reacted too quickly. If he tried to trap the mist, it might disperse further, maybe even reach the station's oxygen lines. That could suffocate everyone on board. He made a decision. There was only one way to stop this from spiraling. "All right," he muttered to himself, "we improvise." Lucas grabbed a portable bioscanner and pointed it at the mist. The readings jumped wildly. The barnacles weren't just alive, they were communicating. Light pulses and tiny vibrations synchronized with the hatchling's weak heartbeat. They seemed to understand him or at least react to his presence. That realization sent a chill down his spine. The dragon mother let out a low rumble, stepping closer, wings tense. She nudged the hatchling pod with her snout as if urging him to hurry. Lucas took a deep breath. Fear could not slow him down. He opened the pod carefully, reaching inside while the mother hovered protectively. "Easy, little one," he whispered. The hatchling squirmed weakly, barnacles wriggling, but it didn't resist. Lucas gently placed his hands over its scales, trying to steady it. The barnacles pulsed, then, strangely, retracted slightly as if acknowledging his touch. A small, unexpected win. A tiny beat of hope. But the moment of relief shattered when the mist surged upward, heading for the vent system. A faint screech echoed from somewhere deep in the station's walls. The barnacles had discovered new paths, new ways to spread. The dragon mother roared, wings flaring, claws scraping the floor. Lucas felt the blast of wind and stepped back just in time to avoid being knocked over. He had to act fast. There wasn't time for caution. He grabbed a portable force field generator, the one used for emergency medical isolation, and aimed it at the mist. The device sparked as he powered it on, and a shimmering bubble formed over the nearest tendrils of the green fog. The barnacles hit the barrier and recoiled, hissing, light pulsing faster. Lucas' eyes widened. They weren't just retreating, they were testing him. Calculating him. Almost thinking. "Okay, we need a new approach," he said, voice tight but steady. He tapped the side of the generator, adjusting frequency to match the barnacles' pulse patterns. The idea came quickly, almost instinctively. If they could react to him, maybe he could communicate back. It was risky. Extremely risky. A misstep could trigger the barnacles to release toxins or escape into the station's life support lines. But he had no choice. He extended his hands, placing them above the generator, focusing on matching the pulse of the barnacles. The green light flickered violently. Sparks flew from the machine. Sweat ran down Lucas' temple. The dragon mother leaned closer, wings trembling with tension. Her gaze locked on him, almost begging him to succeed. He could feel her emotion, fear, desperation, hope. And somehow that gave him more focus. Humans might be fragile, but humans could think, improvise, and care in ways the barnacles hadn't anticipated. A faint click sounded from the pod. The hatchling stirred, weak but alive. Encouraged, Lucas adjusted the generator again, fine-tuning the pulses. The mist slowed. The barnacles twitched, then dimmed slightly, almost as if he had pacified them. A small victory. His chest lifted with a moment of relief and he whispered, "We're not out yet, but we're getting there." Then the station shook violently. Sparks flew from the overhead panels. Lucas stumbled but kept his hands steady. A warning light flashed, vent pressure dropping. The mist had found a vent he hadn't sealed in time. He cursed under his breath and bolted across the lab. The dragon mother followed, sliding her massive wings along the walls with precision to avoid knocking anything else over. Lucas reached the vent just as the green mist began to seep inside. He slammed the emergency hatch closed, holding it with all his strength. The barnacles hissed, pulsing against the metal barrier. He felt their intelligence, their anger, their frustration. And then, unexpectedly, the hatchling let out a small, gurgling sound. Its eyes blinked weakly at him. The dragon mother crouched low, her massive head beside his. She let out a soft rumble, almost a sigh of relief. She wasn't safe yet, and neither was he, but for a moment, there was a fragile trust. A bond formed in the chaos, human and alien standing together against an impossible, incomprehensible threat. Lucas exhaled, heart pounding, and looked around the lab. The barnacles were still alive, still pulsing but contained, for now. He knew this was just the beginning. Whatever had infected the hatchling was far smarter and far more dangerous than anyone could imagine. And the moment he thought about it, a faint vibration ran through the floor, almost like a heartbeat. Not the hatchlings. Something else. Lucas froze, hand on the containment hatch. The dragon mother hissed sharply, ears flicking, eyes wide. The mist pulsed again, faint tendrils brushing against the hatch's outer surface, glowing brighter than ever. Something in the barnacles was communicating, and it was calling something bigger. Lucas swallowed hard. He had stabilized the hatchling, bought precious time, but now a new, terrifying question burned in his mind. What had the barnacles just summoned? Lucas pressed his forehead against the cold metal of the containment hatch, trying to calm his racing heart. The barnacles' glow pulsed erratically, lighting up the dim lab like a warning beacon. Every instinct screamed danger, but curiosity, human curiosity, was stronger. He had to understand them or they might destroy the station. He scanned the hatchling's vitals again. Its heart beat weakly but steadily, a fragile rhythm amidst chaos. The barnacles twitched with each pulse, and Lucas realized something chilling. They weren't just parasites. They were connected to the hatchling, feeding on its energy, communicating through it. They were intelligent, terrifyingly intelligent. He stepped back and studied the mist that had seeped under the pod. The barnacles were reacting to him, pulsing brighter when he moved. He needed more data. He grabbed a portable bioscanner and carefully hovered it above the hatchling, observing the readings. Patterns emerged, light pulses synchronized with tiny electrical signals in the hatchling's nervous system. Lucas' mind raced. He muttered to himself, "They're not just sick, they're controlling him." The dragon mother crouched beside him, eyes narrowed, nostrils flaring. She hissed softly as if confirming his thought. Her wings twitched with tension. Lucas realized the barnacles weren't just a biological threat. They were a messenger, a signal transmitter. The hatchling's pain wasn't just illness, it was a warning. He looked around the lab. Sparks from the previous overload still sizzled from damaged panels. Vent pressure stabilized, but the mist's faint green tendrils hovered, waiting. Lucas knew he couldn't fight blindly. He needed a plan, and fast. His hands moved over the scanner controls, improvising. "Maybe, if I can match their pulse frequency," he muttered. His voice trailed off as he realized what he was trying to do. Communicate with them. A human reaching across species barriers, to reason with a swarm of intelligent parasites. It was risky. Deadly risky. The dragon mother shifted, watching him carefully. Lucas held the hatchling in his arms, feeling the faint warmth of its body. The barnacles twitched violently at first, then seemed to pause, sensing the change in rhythm from Lucas' scanner. A connection sparked, small, fragile but real. A soft, guttural sound came from the hatchling. It wasn't just a cry, it was recognition. Lucas' heart leapt. He had done something. He had bridged the gap. For a brief moment, hope glimmered in the chaos. But the moment shattered. The hatchling's barnacles pulsed violently, sending a sharp vibration through the pod. Sparks flew from the scanner. Lucas stumbled back, almost dropping the hatchling. The mist rose again, curling toward the vents, faster than before. It wasn't just reacting, it was calling out. "Shit," Lucas muttered. The barnacles weren't merely intelligent, they were alerting someone, or something. His mind flashed through possibilities, each more terrifying than the last. A predator? What? An entire alien species? The dragon mother let out a low roar, wings flaring in warning. Lucas realized with a sinking feeling that the mother wasn't just protective. She was aware of the signal too. She looked past him toward the station's main viewport. Something was coming. Something huge. He took a deep breath. Fear gnawed at his chest, but humans had a way of thinking through impossible odds. He needed to act and fast. He adjusted the scanner again, matching the barnacle's pulse to the hatchling's heart rate, trying to calm them. The green glow dimmed slightly. Small progress. Tiny victory. Then without warning the hatchling twitched violently. The barnacles pulsed in a synchronized flash, and the station lights flickered. Lucas realized with horror that the barnacles were reacting to his attempts to communicate. His human intelligence had been noticed, and tested. "Okay, think," he whispered. "They're smart, they can sense me, maybe they can understand purpose, intent." His mind raced. He recalled the Dragon Mother's behavior, her gestures, her roars. She had trust in him even now. That was the key. If he could earn the barnacles' recognition, maybe he could stop them without destroying the hatchling. He took a step closer, holding the hatchling high enough to be visible to both Mother and Mist. He synchronized the scanner's pulse with his heartbeat, slow and steady, a human rhythm that conveyed calm, not aggression. The barnacles twitched once, twice, then pulsed in a gentler pattern, almost like acknowledgement. Lucas' eyes widened. He was doing it. He was connecting. A human had reached across species, intelligence to intelligence, and paused a biological threat. The hatchling relaxed slightly in his arms, barnacles retracting. The Dragon Mother exhaled, a low rumble that seemed almost grateful. Small payoff, he had bought time. The hatchling's vitals steadied. The barnacles no longer thrashed wildly. He had turned a deadly situation into a fragile, workable moment of control. But then another shock came. The barnacles pulsed rapidly again, brighter than ever. A faint, rhythmic hum began echoing through the station, low, almost musical, but unmistakably intelligent. The mist was forming shapes in the air, geometric patterns impossible for ordinary biology. Lucas' stomach sank. He realized with cold clarity, this wasn't just the barnacles. Something else was responding to their signal. Something bigger. Something far more dangerous. The Dragon Mother hissed sharply, stepping protectively in front of him. Lucas' pulse raced. His human courage, intelligence, and empathy had achieved a miracle. He had calmed the barnacles, but now a new, terrifying question emerged. What had they just called? And what would answer? Lucas' hands shook as he tightened the straps on the hatchling containment pod. The faint green mist still pulsed, but now it carried a rhythm he could feel in his bones. A warning, a signal, something alive and waiting. Every instinct screamed danger, yet he knew he couldn't freeze. Fear would kill them faster than the barnacles ever could. The Dragon Mother pressed close, wings flexing, claws tapping impatiently on the metal floor. She growled low, her voice vibrating through the station walls. Lucas met her eyes, and for the first time he felt not just trust but understanding. They were allies in a fight neither fully understood. Then it came. A shockwave rattled the station as the vents shuddered violently. The barnacle mist surged upward, responding to something beyond the station. Lucas' stomach dropped. They weren't just reacting to him, they were summoning it. He could feel it in the vibrations along the floor, a growing presence. Lucas ran to the control panel, scanning for life support failures. The vents were compromised. Oxygen levels were dropping in isolated sections. The mist swirled faster, seeking paths, probing weaknesses in the station's systems. If it reached the central life support chamber, every living being on the station would suffocate. He took a deep breath. This was it. There was no manual, no protocol, no precedent. Only his intelligence, his hands, and the courage to act. He grabbed the portable bioisolation generator, the same device he'd used to stabilize the hatchling, and moved to the center of the lab. Sparks flew as he powered it on. The humming field expanded, forcing the barnacle mist to retract slightly, but the effect was temporary. The mist pulsed harder, testing him. The Dragon Mother let out a deafening roar, wings flaring, shaking the lab. Lucas could feel her fear, her anxiety, but also her strength. Her sheer presence gave him a sliver of hope. Humans might be small and fragile, but humans could think, improvise, and act where instincts alone weren't enough. Sweat ran down Lucas' temple as he adjusted the generator's frequency, trying to match the barnacle's pulse rhythm. He had realized something critical. The barnacles responded to intent, not just proximity. Calm, measured intent could pacify them. Aggression or hesitation could trigger disaster. A flash of realization struck him. The hatchling's barnacles had been the signal, but the hatchling itself was the key. If he could synchronize the generator with the hatchling's heartbeat, the barnacles might stabilize fully. He held the pod tightly, carefully aligning the generator's field. The barnacles pulsed violently at first, then hesitated. The mist recoiled slightly. Lucas' heart pounded, hands trembling, but he forced himself to remain steady. One wrong move could rupture the pod, release the barnacles, and end everything. Then the station shook violently, more powerful than before. A deep vibration reverberated through the walls. Lucas' stomach dropped. Something massive was approaching. He glanced at the viewport and saw it, a shadow looming in orbit, enormous, almost planetary in scale, glowing faintly in response to the barnacle signal. The barnacles had summoned something from the void, something Lucas could not yet comprehend. The dragon mother pressed against him, her eyes wide with alarm. Lucas felt the weight of the moment. The barnacles, intelligent and alive, had a greater purpose. If he failed now, the station, and everyone on it, would be destroyed. He adjusted the generator again, now risking a full overload. Sparks flew, wires arced, and the hum of the device grew deafening. Sweat stung his eyes and his muscles screamed in protest, but he kept his focus. The barnacles pulsed in sync with the hatchling, then slowly with the generator. The mist began to retract, ever so slightly. Suddenly, a sharp screech echoed through the station. The mist surged toward him, faster than ever, as if aware of his plan. Lucas dodged falling panels and debris, clutching the hatchling to his chest. The dragon mother lunged, shielding him with her wings, her claws scraping the floor to deflect hazards. They moved as one, a fragile alliance of human and alien facing an impossible threat. Lucas made the final adjustment, channeling all power from the generator into a concentrated biofeedback pulse. Light exploded across the lab, green and white flashes blinding him for a moment. The barnacles shrieked, pulsing violently in every direction. Lucas could feel every strand of their intelligence resisting, fighting, but then, slowly, they began to withdraw, clustering tightly around the hatchling. The mist pulled back from the vents. The hum faded. The barnacles dimmed, finally still. Lucas gasped for air, heart hammering, sweat dripping from every pore. Small payoff, he had won the first battle. The hatchling was alive. The station was safe, for now. The dragon mother lowered her head, brushing him gently with her snout. Lucas felt an unexpected warmth in that gesture, a silent acknowledgement of trust, gratitude, and recognition. He had done what no one else could. A human had bridged species, used intelligence and courage to overcome an impossible biological threat. But just as relief began to settle, a faint vibration ran through the floor. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but unmistakable. The barnacles pulsed once more, brighter than before, as if responding to something far larger than the station. Lucas froze. The shadow outside the viewport shifted slightly, glowing faintly in patterns that mirrored the barnacle pulses. Whatever had been summoned by the barnacles wasn't neutral, it was aware. It had noticed him. Lucas' chest tightened. He had saved the hatchling, but now he understood the terrible truth. His victory was temporary. Something intelligent, massive, and alien was now moving toward them. The barnacles were only the beginning. The dragon mother hissed sharply, nudging Lucas back toward the hatchling pod. Her eyes flicked to the viewport, then back to him. The message was clear: prepare for the real challenge. Lucas' mind raced. He had courage, he had intelligence, and he had determination, but was it enough? Whatever was coming next would test everything he had learned about alien biology, life, and the limits of human ingenuity. He tightened his grip on the hatchling and muttered under his breath, "We're not done yet. Not by a long shot." Lucas sank to one knee, still holding the hatchling tightly against his chest. The barnacle mist had withdrawn, dimmed to faint pulses around the tiny creature's body, but his chest heaved with exhaustion. Every muscle ached, every nerve screamed, but the fear that had gripped him earlier had shifted to something else. Relief, fragile but real. The hatchling's heartbeat had steadied, its weak gurgles now almost peaceful. The dragon mother lowered her massive head to meet his gaze, eyes reflecting a mix of trust and gratitude. She had carried her suffering young across light years to reach him, and he had answered her courage with his own. Lucas felt an unspoken bond form in that moment, a connection beyond language or species. Humans might be small and fragile, he realized, but they could think, improvise, and act where instincts alone failed. That was the difference. He carefully placed the hatchling back into the containment pod. The barnacles twitched once more, almost hesitating before settling entirely. The dragon mother leaned down, her clawed wings folding protectively around the pod, shielding her young as if to say, "We are safe, for now, because of him." Lucas exhaled, a long, trembling breath. Small payoff. He had saved a life, and in doing so he had earned the respect of a species far older and far more alien than his own. The lab was a mess. Sparks smoldered from overloaded conduits, panels hung loose from the walls, and the vents still carried faint traces of the green mist. But the immediate threat was over. Lucas wiped sweat from his brow, surveying the chaos. Every instinct screamed that the barnacles were gone, but he knew better. He had seen intelligence in their movements, a purpose beyond simple survival. Whatever had infected the hatchling was part of something bigger. "Are you staying?" he asked almost foolishly to the dragon mother. Her eyes flicked toward the viewport, then back to him. A low rumble rolled from her chest, a sound almost like affirmation. She would remain at least until her young were fully safe. That small moment of understanding filled Lucas with warmth. He had acted with courage, intellect, and compassion, and it had made a difference. That was what being human meant in moments that demanded impossible odds. As he began securing the lab and stabilizing the hatchling pod, a soft hum resonated through the station. Lucas froze. The barnacles pulsed faintly, and for a moment, it seemed as if the hatchling itself was signaling something, responding to some far-off presence. He knelt closer, inspecting the pod, and saw patterns in the barnacle glow he hadn't noticed before. Subtle, almost deliberate pulses. A faint code. His chest tightened. The barnacles were not just alive, they had been transmitting a signal all along, and whatever had been alerted was still out there. Larger, older, and far more intelligent than he had imagined. Lucas' human mind raced. He had saved the hatchling and stabilized the immediate threat, but the mystery was far from over. The dragon mother hissed softly, as if warning him of something beyond the hatchling, beyond the station. Lucas' gaze shifted to the viewport. In orbit, faint green pulses danced across the void. It was impossible to tell exactly what it was, something massive and intelligent moving in response to the barnacle's signal. Lucas swallowed hard. His hands tightened around the pod, holding the hatchling close. Small payoff. He had survived, he had acted decisively, and he had prevented immediate disaster. But now he faced a new, unseen danger, a challenge that would demand every ounce of courage and ingenuity he possessed. He straightened, determination settling over him like armor. Humans could be small, but they were clever. Humans could be vulnerable, but they could think faster, adapt quicker, and act with compassion in ways that even the most ancient aliens could not anticipate. That was his strength, and the reason the dragon mother had chosen him without knowing him to save her young. The hatchling shifted in the pod, nuzzling toward him weakly. The dragon mother watched, her eyes softening. Lucas allowed himself a small, victorious smile. He had earned trust. He had built a fragile alliance between species. He had shown that human courage and intelligence could stand against threats that seemed impossible. Yet even as he exhaled, the faint hum of the barnacles reminded him that this was not the end. The intelligence beyond the barnacles was still out there, waiting, watching. He could feel it like a presence pressing against the edges of his mind. A larger challenge loomed. One that would push him and humanity further than this single station, this single hatchling, had ever demanded. Lucas looked at the dragon mother one last time. She lifted her young gently, wings folding around the hatchling's body, and then she paused, head lowered to touch his shoulder with her massive snout. Gratitude. Respect. Recognition. He straightened again, heart pounding but steady. "We did it," he whispered, though he knew the words were only partly true. They had survived, yes, but the universe had noticed humans now. And whatever had been summoned by the barnacles would not forget. As the dragon mother carried her young hatchling toward the station exit, the faint green hum pulsed one last time. It wasn't a farewell. It was a signal, a reminder that the galaxy was far bigger and far more dangerous than Lucas had imagined. And that humans, small, clever, resilient humans, were now part of it. Lucas exhaled, gripping the hatchling pod one final time. The station was quiet again, the lights flickering gently, alarms silent. Emotional payoff. He had acted with courage, intelligence, and compassion, and his choices had saved lives and forged a bond across species. But then a flicker of green light caught his eye from the corner of the lab. A soft, rhythmic pulse, faint but unmistakable. Someone, or something, was responding to the barnacle signal, far beyond the station, far beyond the dragon mother. Lucas' pulse quickened. A subtle smile crept across his face, eyes narrowing with determination. He had faced impossible odds and he had prevailed. And now he knew the next challenge was coming. Bigger, smarter, far more dangerous. Lucas whispered under his breath, voice steady with resolve, "Bring it on."